We're on a real mission here this morning at Armour with the Chieftain.
Not quite, Steve.
Not quite.
Makes it? Yeah, makes it.
We've got to make sure at all costs that the tank doesn't lurch forward. It's going forwards. Joe Hewes, in his typical style on the telephone, he said,
any brakes on a Chieftain other than super brakes generally don't work.
is it time to knock off yet? Ah, beautiful. If I just gone and pulled something out that I shouldn't have pulled out. Oh, that's grouse. Dodged a bullet there. Oh. This is probably the biggest bump in the road that I've encountered so far with the reanimation of the Chieftain. Bugger. It's all looking really good too. Oh. Doesn't that look fantastic, huh? So areas of concern, apart from the vast amount of crap that's in there, corrosion on the solenoids, rust and corrosion on the connections. Then there's the actual operation of the solenoids themselves. Actually, this solenoid here is stuck down, I think. Careful, tappy, tap, tap. Oh, look at that. You beauty. So it's important to realise that even though I didn't really hit that, put a lot of force into freeing it up, the magnetic force that the solenoid's able to generate is definitely not strong enough to overcome that sort of drag. So it's an incredibly complex mechanical device, but overlaid on top of that is a relatively simple electro-hydraulic control system. For example, if you want first gear, you get an electrical impulse that's sent from the controller, and if it's happy with the number of engine revs, parking brakes off, got plenty of brake pressure, it energizes the low range solenoid plus the first gear solenoid so that you can start going forward. What that means is the armature of the solenoid under magnetic influence gets pulled down, which then pushes on a hydraulic spool valve which is underneath here, which then switches on oil pressure, but then it directs oil to the relevant hydraulic servo piston and cylinder assembly, which then pushes down on a brake which activates the particular gear. Plan of attack is to start the engine up, make sure that the transmission is making oil pressure, and then I'm going to manually operate the solenoids. Almost got caught completely with a jet of oil. What that's actually proving is that when I push down on the armature of the solenoid, spool valve is directing oil pressure into the transmission, and then when I release it, the oil that's in the servo piston has to go somewhere, so it gets vented back out of this hole What I want to do is to check everything in between the contactors here to the solenoid itself using a 24 volt battery. Connect the ground pin. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to cycle through the other 6 pins and watch to see which of these work. Let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. So this is the high range solenoid. Next one. So that's 3. Guessing this will be low. Yeah. Low. So lucky last. That's first gear. So all of them are making a pleasant clunking sound and they're working. One antique to another. I'm expressing my amazement that this thing is coming to life the way it is. So I'm going to take all of the remnants of the gasket off, clean up the rust, give it a bit of a paint and try and clean all of this out as much as possible. I wonder if this was a acceptable production defect. I don't think it's been damaged. Who knows? This reddish brown stuff here is actually Stag. Hang on a minute. Did you look at that? Stag jointing paste. Unfortunately, I think it's ossified. It's got a particular smell to it that anyone that's ever done any work on pommy cars would have used this. So that's a real survivor. That's got to be 30 years old maybe. Put it back there where it can rest happily for a few more years. Gasket time. Taking the opportunity to spray it. Generous coating of Armour, good pommy product for a great pommy vehicle. When I put this cover back on, I've got to make sure that those springs that I've just put on lock into here, because this is actually part of the system on how you adjust the armatures for the travel of the solenoid. So I'm planning not to touch them because they'll soon be working okay, but want to make sure it all fits on properly. Just going to check that the springs are on. I figure it's a good time to get the transmission draining because, as we know, it's got signs of water ingress inside the transmission, and we've all seen the horror videos from old Blighty and Mr. Hewes about these transmissions being full of water. So before I start it up and start circulating the oil again, I might as well get the old stuff out and put some fresh gear in there. Here goes. Now I dropped the plug. And I don't have a rag handy. Oh. Filled up awfully quick. Oh God, what a mess. One hell of a bloody sump plug. Look at it's massive. You know, its primary purpose is to stop the oil from running out the bottom, and it does have like a magnet in the end of it which thankfully is blessedly free of any large chunks and stuff, but it's a massive bit of gear. Alright, very good. That can drain away while I start working on other stuff. Transmission's got 3 oil filters on it. For what reason, I'm not sure. I might as well pull them off, empty them out, because they will have their own low spots where water can settle out. Tool abuse warning. Yes. Yes, yes. I might take this back to the workshop and open it up and clean it up, because I'm betting that that's going to be quite rusted. So we're taking bets on what's in. Oh, yes. Super excellent. It's mind-boggling that this thing manages to keep going. Absolutely mind-boggling. Right, but I need to make sure that some of these little seals and springs and stuff don't get mixed up. Just incredible. It's actually a mesh filter, not a replaceable cartridge, so yeah, we should be able to give this a bit of a clean up and make it a lot better than what it bloody is, that's for sure. Gratuitous liquid pour. Just reassemble this so I don't get the order mixed up. This is a quality of sludge that would make a Soviet tank engine designer green with envy. It also makes me wonder how long it's been since these bloody filters have been checked. Nice. So yeah, this just shows you contrast between as found and after a bit of a wire brush to clean off some of the build up of rust and scale off there, because we want to give it the best possible chance of working like it should. And also peace of mind too, you put the thing back together and it's one less thing that you need to worry about. See if we've got any real chunky bits. What have we got in here? There's always the real interesting things of detritus. Got sealant, rust, paint flakes. Nothing too terrible though, no chunks of teeth or anything like that. So now it's time for reassembly after hours of cleaning. Okay, so there's a few little bits and pieces, got to make sure they go on properly. A little gasket O-ring fits in here. I've got a little circlip on that holds the center bolt through. Spring goes on. Stainless steel washer. Rubber gasket. Different t-shirt, so you know it's a different day, but same place, same vehicle. Thanks to Dave, he's helped me out a bit and refitted the oil filters that I cleaned and overhauled. He's also put some fresh oil in the transmission. I'm ready to start doing some functional tests of the transmission. Don't have the final drives connected, so it's safe to do it, so the thing's not going to take off and run away from me. The electro-hydraulic part of the transmission is functioning correctly, but what I'm not sure about is what's coming from the gear change controller down the front. So I'm going to button up the top plate here, and then we'll go up front and I'll show you what I've done. I can look at the gear change indicator that's on the dashboard, but this is not a guarantee that you're actually getting electrical activity going down to the transmission. So this is the patch harness that I've got here to give me a visual indication to check the electrical impulses going to the transmission. Now with some bated breath, it's time to power it up and check it. Turn on the switches. So I'm going to operate the change with my toe. Let's see what happens. That's gear 1, but I'm a little bit disappointed because in order for the transmission to work, I need gear 1 plus I need the low to be working as well too, but let's see what else is happening. So moving up, that's second, third, so still no low, so there's some problem with the low circuit. Now if you remember, it's only a 3-speed box, so if I go to 4th gear I should see number 1 re-illuminate, but the high circuit should turn on. Oh, there we go. And that, so that's high 1, which means it's 4th gear, 5th gear and 6th gear. Alright, that part of it's good. That's the reverse button there, so I'll press that. Oh, look at that. So first and R, so that's low first. 3 and R, that's high reverse. So that's the second speed reverse. So frustratingly close that of all the circuits there, there's one that's not working. I figure I'll check from this junction box because I can do a continuity check from the junction box all the way to the transmission.
Who does the U to it?
Oof. So while it's a bit horrific, the amount of corrosion that's in here, now I'm pretty confident to why the low circuit is not working in the transmission. I'm going to have a go at undoing all the electrical connections and seeing if I can pull this off without breaking anything. Gritting my teeth a bit, waiting to see what's under there, and yes, I'm a bit disappointed actually because it's not quite as corroded as I would have hoped. So it's time to hit the books and start looking at some circuit diagrams. Wires from the solenoid block go into the hull rear junction box, so that's the box I opened up that was all full of rust and corrosion. I can trace through the connection to the low circuit which is not working, and it goes through here. What I want to try and do is check the wires that go between the rear junction box and the transmission controller. You can see over here E is the low circuit. What I want to do is to check terminal E at the gearbox controller back to the solenoid block. Simple, huh? Yeah. This terminal's A, so A, B, C, D, E. So using the patch harness that I've got for testing the electrical operation of the transmission, if I've got continuity between here and the back of the transmission, then it means that the controller is the problem. And would you look at that? No continuity. Great. Wriggled out of the driver's compartment and come back into the fighting compartment. So this is, yeah, the whole main junction box that also has all the significant circuit breakers for the different electrical systems in the tank. So switch the cover off and would you look at that, huh? And then we have another plate under here as well, just for good measure. So on first impressions, it looks like a real dog's breakfast, but do not fear. It's actually simpler than what it looks. You've got letters on here. So F is the one that we're interested in because that's where all the transmission stuff comes in. So A, B, C, D, E, and F. And then the next thing is the actual identification of the pins on that F joiner. So we've got 1 starting at the top left and 20 at the bottom right. Everything we're really interested in is between 11 and 20. So I'll also mark 20, 11. And so it's basically a case of rinse and repeat. We'll go through and check all of the wires. Gear 3 is 11. Yep. Gear 2 is 10. Yep. Gear 1 is 9. H high range 8. 8. Low range, which is our MIA. Number 6, nothing. And reverse is pin 5. Alright, so that confirms what we found down the front. Next thing I'll do is I'll disconnect everything from down the back and then do a continuity check between the transmission controller and the junction box. Right, so at the end of this wire, which goes off back into the driver's compartment, I've got that plugged into terminal E in the harness connector for the transmission controller. Now I'll stick the other end of my trusty multimeter and probe pin 16, so 20, 19, 18, 17, 16. Yes, that's excellent news. The pin coming from the gearbox connector here is doubled over to the wire which is going to the rear of the tank to the actual transmission. So this is telling me, and I'll confirm this shortly, that the break in the wiring must be between the junction box and the rear of the tank, which is excellent news. Okay, so this is my flying lead that I'm going to take out through the top of the turret and then plug it in directly down the back to see if we can make the circuit to get this bloody transmission going. Who can tell me what's the right terminal to connect to? Alright, I'll put you out of your misery. So it's pin number 6 in the junction box. It's this little bugger here. So obviously if this fixes it, I'm going to have to come up with a bit more of a permanent solution, which will involve threading the wires through into the fighting compartment. Now, like an excited kid, I'm going to run down the front, see what we can see. I'm really hoping that this fixes the issue. So here we go. Everything's powered on. Gear 1. Oh, hang on. Ha! Because there's no low range. plug in the low range circuit and see what happens. Yes, look at that. I'm a happy camper. So that's first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, sixth gear, down change, change, down change, 0, neutral, reverse gear, low, reverse gear, high, neutral. You bloody beauty. So we fixed the problem. I've worked out a test sequence with Dave to help out here so that I can monitor how the transmission is rotating down the back according to the gears selected. Righto Dave, when you're ready, start her up and put her in first. It works, it's alive. It's alive. And I must have dropped a rag down there because it got sucked into the cooling fan and suddenly it minced it all up and there was bits of rag going all over the place. But that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Tip top, eh? tracks. So dry pin link and that badly seized, and we're all absolutely confounded by why the tracks aren't coming loose. We've tensioned the tracks up, we've attempted to break them, we've soaked them in water, we've applied heat, we've done all sorts of things, and I'm generally pretty optimistic, but I'm edging towards this could actually be a showstopper.
No, Steve.
It's undrivable at the moment. I'm really worried that the track is going to grab hold of one of the mud guards and it's just going to pull the whole thing off.
2 days till Oz Armour Fest. Can we get it going?
Well, I'm going to give it my best shot. Mechanically, I couldn't be happier given that it's an antique bit of English engineering.
To be continued again.
To be continued. And get your Oz Armour tickets.